You're listening to The Small Council, a Game of Thrones podcast. Welcome, everyone, to The Small Council podcast, a Game of Thrones podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Small Council Pod. You can email us, smallcouncilpod@gmail.com. My name is Axel. I will be your host this evening. Later on, you're going to hear a solo cast from our man Heath Snowlow, who was out and about, riding the pines, or behind the boards, as they say. Couldn't join us on our show on Sunday night. And tonight I'm going to bring you some feedback as well as some reflections I had on a rewatch. So thank you for downloading the podcast. Tell your friends, give us a rating on iTunes, do all that kind of stuff. But we do appreciate it. We're having a lot of fun getting back to doing the podcast. This will be our first full season. But let's get to it. One of the things I was thinking about on the rewatch is the final scene with Melisandre. It started to give me a lot of deja vu towards the end of 2001, when Dave Bowman has been sucked into wherever he gets sucked into, and is there's a representation of him in this very ornate room, laying down on a bed, and then he looks up and sees himself, and just the way she was moving and the shot with the mirror and how she kind of looks back. I'm sure there's people out there who have watched 2001 while listening to Pink Floyd, and what is it in Metal, when he turns and looks and sees himself as being older, and then the song starts changing. So go out and do that, kids. Listen to Metal at the same time that you, or is it Metal or is it Dark Side? Maybe it's Metal. It's Metal, definitely. If you start the song when it says Jupiter and Beyond the Infinite, and watch it from then, you'll love it. But anyway, let's get to what I was talking about. Yeah, that's really fun. If you look at kind of how they shoot things and what they're hearkening to and what that really meant. And I started thinking more about what did that really mean? I've heard so many theories so far. Let's see. What we talked about was that this has something, either people think it has something to do with the necklace, or they think the necklace is representational of her taking off, kind of just like taking off her makeup, taking everything off at the end of the night. I've heard some people say maybe that's just the way she goes to bed every night. And what we were seeing was just the truth of who she is and that she has power. That I don't really know what to think at this point. I think it's really interesting that scene, when I first saw it, my first inclination was to be a little bit disappointed. And I was like, that's what they ended the first episode with? Like, who cares? So she's really old. Then as we talked about it on the show and rewatching and having been, 5 or so days, you think about what was this really communicating, and hearing other people's opinions. There's so many diverse opinions that at this point, I don't know what to believe, but I am edging towards that this was in some way just showing us how powerful she could be. And whether that means that she ends up bringing Jon Snow back, or whether it means that she has a Oh, I just got a live on the show. I just got a text from Donald. I asked him if he wanted to do this show with me. Oh, okay. He's going to bed. So I'm solo. Look, we're live here, man. I'm just going to keep on chatting. It's been a while since I did a podcast all by myself, so this might be a little bit rambly. But we're trying this experiment with doing a second episode, and We just wanted to, reach out, get some people's ideas out there. Um, yeah, whether that means that Melisandre is going to do something with Jon Snow and bring him back to life, whether it just means that or she has some other duplicitous thing going on. Maybe she isn't who she appears to be in more ways than one, and is somehow involved deeper in this battle between good and evil with the White Walkers even. How far does she go back? How much does she know? How much has she manipulated over all this period of time? And I think that is what I find the most interesting. The Jon Snow angle, I'm starting to feel more and more like that's a little bit of a red herring with him. How I mean, Davos says it at the end, right? You don't know you've seen what I've seen her do, and then they cut to her. So he was kind of setting her up to doing something with Jon Snow in their situation, and I tend to think that's not what's going to happen. I just think that the Wildlings are going to come back and wreak havoc, and they're going to take over, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be at the wall. So that was one point that I noticed. Now, there was a whole uproar over the ship and Prince getting killed. I guess I'm saying the Prince, but I guess there's two, right? There's Doran, who was killed in Dorne. We saw that happen. And then his son, who I keep on forgetting his name, so I'm just calling him the Prince. And that's what I'll continue to call him because we're live on the air. I'll remember his name at some point. He's dead anyway, right? And there seems to be a lot of, like, as we talked about on the show, people on the book side lamenting the loss of Dorne, because from what I understand, there was a larger involvement that took place internally that there's no way they could retcon that. I don't know. I guess they could pin it on someone else at this point, but I don't even know what it is. I just know that something internally went on there, and it was like a kind of more political machinations that took up a good portion of the books. So I understand. To me, as a TV viewer, I don't really. The only thing I lament is that it seems like they had, the PA direct these things, and there's still no established. It's just not Game of Thrones worthy. It seems like they're cutting to a sci-fi show or like a CW show or a USA show when they should be cutting to Game of Thrones. Overall, it doesn't really bother me. For one, I on the other hand, if there were no books, I feel as though there would be a large contingency of people saying, good, we're moving this story along, right? Like, I don't care to have all this setup. Is she going to kill the guy? What's going to happen? Oh, look, the sand snakes are over there. They're dancing again, or whatever they do when they fight. And, the thing just became silly. And I actually think that they kind of turned it around with these couple of scenes. And if what is happening is we're getting out of there, because now the understanding is, and on Twitter, we had someone who was kind enough to tweet at us a very interesting article that was about this. Let me find it right here. Oh, we got a lot going on the Twitter. I'll tell you that. There we go. Okay, so Andrew Abernathy, thank you. That there was a note that when Doran looked at the note that was given to him just before he was murdered, it basically said, I'll read it for everyone who is listening. What are you doing while you're listening to this? You know what I'm probably doing? I'd probably be doing the dishes. Maybe I'm vacuuming. Maybe I'm taking a walk. I wonder what you're doing while you're listening to me right now. Um, anyway, to get to the point, I'll get to the note. But the point is that this note basically, Jamie sends Doran a note, and it basically says, look, Marcella's dead. We know that you didn't do it. But what we want is, we want you to, okay, here we go. We want you to kill Ilaria and the Sand Snakes. Send me their heads, and that'll stop my sister from declaring war. And P.S., I'm sending your son back on a boat. So we didn't get to see that note. So then later, where there was endless discussion on podcasts and Twitter and whatever about how they messed up that scene, and a lot of people agreed. It still doesn't make any sense, actually, after reading that note, because the establishing shot before the prince is killed is in King's Landing. So he's not on his way back, right? But still, I guess we're just going to have to take it for what it is. And I guess it doesn't really matter at the time. I mean, it doesn't really matter in the future. Tristane, there it is. That's why I was messing up what I was saying. Tristane, okay? This article even says, Jamie's note claims that sending Tristane back to Dorne, probably to protect him from Cersei, and so whether this ship was still sat in Blackwater Bay or on its way back to Dorne, it's likely the two of the Sand Snakes just jumped on another boat and caught them, boarding once Jamie had taken Marcella's body back to King's Landing. But see, this is the part that it's like, whether the ship was still sat, which I don't know if that's proper English, was still sat. I don't think that's proper. You know what? People do not proofread on the internet anymore, man. You know, I used to be an editor, and it kills me, but you know what? It's not my job anymore. And so whether this ship is still in Blackwater Bay or on its way back to Dorne, it's likely that they just jumped. But that does make a difference, right? Because at the end, when Doran is being murdered, right? What does she keep on saying to him? Ilaria keeps on saying, you know, you didn't kill. I guess she blames Cersei, she blames Jamie, she blames the Mountain, she blames all the Lannisters, and then she's like, off she goes. She doesn't say, I'm taking over. It's very strange. Still, we don't know what her intentions are. But if the Sand Snakes are already in King's Landing, then wouldn't the next step be for them to then try to go kill Jamie or kill Cersei? I just mean that, even though in the end we could see next episode they're all back in Dorne, we're just going to accept it and it goes on. And this is to me is one of those things that it fills time in a podcast. Which is exactly what it just did. But it's minutia and it's fun. But in the end, I guess that makes sense. If you didn't see I thought the boat was the thing. Oh, good. We see the boat. They're there. Now we see some sort of intention. But even that doesn't matter. So I guess we're just going to have to wait to the next episode and see what the hell happens. So that was the whole hubbubaloo that happened in regard to the damn boat. Let's get to something different. The moment that Cersei and Jamie had on the second watch struck me as really touching, and I was surprised by that. You know, I think that after rewatching last season, and I think I said this on the last podcast too, my empathy for her has grown, because even though she is a terrible person and it doesn't look as though she has, I don't think we've personally seen her murder anyone, but she has ordered the murder of people, many people, and caused a lot of havoc and problems for people. Is not a good person. What happened to her was just crazy humoring. I don't know how you say it. Was so it must have caused her to go so low. And I like the way that she has kind of given up and Jamie is kind of pushing her. And I can't see her staying that way very long. You know, even when she saw Marcella coming, and a lot of people have commented on what great acting that was, and that really was when she sees the boat coming in. She held it together, but then she just let go in front of him. And I think it's really interesting to see what they're going to do as a team. That's what I think is going to be cool. Let's get to some feedback here. We said it's a feedback episode, and I keep on talking. So let's see here. We got a note here from Mariana from Brazil. Hey guys, great show. Long-time listener, first-time writer. It is known that the Dornish guys won't have power to go all into battle by themselves. What if Ilaria hears about the great power that is conquering the East in the form of the rightful heir of Westeros to ally themselves against the Lannisters? But, Dany is away, and who's the person to get the message from Dorne but the one and only Tyrion? The guy Oberyn vouched for, and the guy who knows and deals fairly well with the most clever Lord Commander the Night's Watch has ever had, who by then will be relived somehow by really old Melisandre. Okay, so this is double theory so far. Even more, the Dornishes will be able to join forces with the Iron People and the Tyrells all against the Lannisters. By then, when all the pieces are in place, bye-bye Cersei, and the good guys will have formed an army big enough to fight the White Walkers. Led by Jon and Dany, with counseling by Tyrion, everything will be falling into place with the help of Bran's visions, and they'll also have great independent fighters in this battle like Arya and Brienne. What do you guys think? Sorry about my English. It was very good. And she says, because she's Brazilian. But I like this. I like this kind of grand unified theory. And the book readers out there are probably saying, oh, yeah, this is something that people have come up with. I think she puts it very well. She puts it together good. It fits. It's tight. I mean, I think we all envision something like this happening, but then there's that little voice in the back of your head, and even as a show watcher, I know well enough to know that in this story, oftentimes the hero gets a knife to the throat, right? And a knife in the belly of his unborn child and his wife. So I think that, I don't know, we had Roberto on, and I don't remember, I think we talked a little bit about that too, when he had said last season on his show, A Pot of Cass, what happens if we are watching this story of the White Walkers winning? And gosh darn it, if there isn't a part of me that thinks that would be fantastic, and I read this and I say, that does sound great, and this is like, like I was saying on the last episode, people, maybe we're going to start seeing the tide turn towards the light. But the more I kind of feel, it just doesn't feel like, like you put on a jacket, it doesn't fit. I don't know if this fits. This is too nice. Because this would mean that all these people make it out, right? I don't know. It does make sense. It does make sense. But I guess we'll have to see. I got to hand it to you, Mariana. Good overarching theory there. I dig it. We got another one from Joe Bear, our friend on Twitter, and who I believe is also the host of the Cinemyth podcast, if I pronounced that correctly. Hey guys, looking forward to hearing your coverage this season. Thanks for keeping the show going. Appreciate it. After waiting a year for new content, premieres can be hard to take in because of expectations, but I thought this one did what it had to do and set some new things in motion for the season. It's always exciting in GOT, that means Game of Thrones, when characters finally get together, so I'm liking where things are going with this new Barry band of misfits Brienne the Stannis Slayer, Pod the Rod, I like that, Sansa the Survivor, and Renegade Reek. The Westeros Avengers. When Sansa was making the oath with Brienne, I was thinking of what Axel suggested in the preview cast about the possibility for some good things to finally start happening to these characters after so much suffering, but we'll see how long that lasts. See? Well, maybe my thoughts were transmuted. Of course, I hope Davos gets to kick some ass this season now that Stannis isn't around to keep him down. And I loved getting to find out more about Melisandre. Do you think if she is able to bring Jon Snow back from the dead, that will turn him into a Lord of Light believer? That could shape things in a big way for the rest of the series. Thanks. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, thanks for the email. That is a really interesting idea. That a lot of people are wondering, how is Jon Snow going to come back? He's going to come back. But then it's like, what's the next step, right? So if she does bring him back, and I mean, that is the prevailing theory, though, like I said, I'm starting to feel like that's a red herring. Would he then owe himself to her? Would it make him believe in what she's selling, Would she then expose herself to everyone? Look at me, I'm old, look at the power I have. I don't know. That's really interesting. It does kind of go in line with all of the actors and the executive producers and everything saying, Jon Snow is dead. Jon Snow is dead. So whoever comes back, it's not really Jon Snow. I heard someone on another podcast liken it to another character, John Locke from Lost, how he came back, but it wasn't really him. So, I don't know. That could be interesting because if he comes back, maybe it won't turn him into a Lord of Light believer. Maybe the person who comes back into his body is already a believer. That would be interesting. And it does hint, like I said, there's some other, what is the plan of the Lord of Light? What's the eventual, what's the end result? To fight the White Walkers and bring peace and all that kind of stuff. But what's the power there? What do we have to, there's always something with Melisandre where you have to, the blood magic, where someone has to die or something has to be given up for this. So what's the toll on the people with the Lord of Light? Interesting. Thanks for that email. Thanks for both of those emails. You can email us, smallcouncilpod@gmail.com. Now we're going to go over to the Twitter. We had a lot of Twitters happening here. I want to thank a whole bunch of people. Brian Winchell was commenting of DJ Timmy Hines' best line of our last podcast. So the Sand Snake used the Baelish machine. I like that. That's true. We had a lot of talk about, of course, the damn boat. With Jack Klumpus chiming in, that was an epic mess by the Double Ds. Christine, Q Poison 10, left us a review. We appreciate that. Leave us a review on iTunes. We had a bunch of new followers. We want to thank everyone for following us. Jack wrote and said, do you expect the Iron Bank of Bravos to play a part in the series eventually? They have to recoup their money. I think this is great, man, because I was just thinking about this the other day. I think I said something to my wife about if they lost it all when I was talking about the ships, about Stannis' ships, right? Because Jon took those ships to the Gift, and then I know people who know the map would know it better than me, but somehow there was some confusion because it was like he left out the gates and then he came back through the wall. So where are the ships? And also those ships don't really belong to Stannis, right? The Bank of Bravos gave him those ships and the money for those ships and for a lot of the men too. Now, a lot of the men deserted and are dead. But were there any left on the ship? Who knows? But that ties into the Bank of Bravos. And I was thinking about that. Now that Danny doesn't have any ships, is she going to go to them for money? Does she? I guess she doesn't need money. She has all those cities, right? And there must be, she has accumulated a lot of wealth. So I guess that's not right. So who would go there next? Would Davos go back again for them to support the wildlings at the wall, or send people or supplies to the wall or something like that? I don't know. Could the Bank of Bravos, isn't Tyrell, I'm sorry, is still over there. That silly Oompa Loompa type character, because he's there on behalf of Cersei, right, to talk about their money situation. We know the Lannisters are broke. So, I mean, I think that we would see the Iron Bank again, because people always need money, right? And we know we have to see them because, is his name Mace Tyrell? Is there already. So I think we will. But maybe we'll also find out about those ships. I was thinking about that. What's up with those ships? Peter says Melisandre will get out of bed, slip and break her hip. Arya will get the flu, messing up her other senses as well. Well, that's a dire prediction for the next episode. Let's see. We have... let's see if we have anything else on that's interesting. Some commentary on Twitter. Well, Brian does. You should check out... if you check out our Twitter feed, he's at Nihon Brian, NIHONBRYAN. And he writes a blog where he recaps the shows, and it's really good. You all should check it out. Let's see. We got anything else? No, I think that's about it. I want to thank a lot of retweets of the podcast and everything. Our man Dennis, of course, coming through. Yeah, we're on the same feed, just changed the name. But yeah, hey, we're getting it going. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the downloads and people listening. It's a lot of fun. We always enjoy getting together. We'll be doing the show again on Sunday. I think Heath is going to join us again. Donald, Mike, Tim, and myself will be there. And what you're going to hear next is another little bit of a solo pod from Heath Snowlow. So you're getting extra long content from us this week. And if we get enough emails and Twitter questions and theories and such after the next episode, perhaps I shall do another episode like this. Mayhaps someone will join me too. But for now, I bid you adieu, Dara Gales, and here is Heath Snowlow.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of The Small Council, a Game of Thrones podcast, formerly podcast Littlefell. We've hence changed the name so it's more easy to find, and probably a lot of people don't know what the hell podcast Littlefell is. But I'm here. I couldn't make it with the guys on Sunday night to give the initial reaction to The Red Woman, episode 1 of season 6. So I'm here to kind of shed some light on my thoughts, maybe clear up some things, and maybe add some new thoughts that we can ponder as we digest the first episode of the new season of Game of Thrones, baby. All right, so first off, I want to agree with Donald, believe it or not. No, the first episode of Game of Thrones every season usually sets people in places where they're going to be, where they're at. They do some foreshadowing. And it's not as dynamic of an episode as, a mid-season or an episode 8 or maybe even a finale. I liked the episode a lot. I actually liked it more the second time around when I watched it. And I kind of just took some notes, but kind of saw it for a second time after listening to some pods and relaxing, and I really enjoyed it. But like I agree with Donald, if the problem is if they would do a 2-hour premiere, it would probably be like the most amazing thing. But because they only do 10 episodes and they, it's an extra week of viewership they don't get if they were to do a 2-hour premiere. So it makes sense why they do the 1 hour, but I guarantee you, after we see episode 2, we'll probably like put these together and be like, oh my God, this is the best ever. So again, it's just, I thought a lot happened in this episode. A lot of positioning as we will explore over the Heath Snowlow hour of the podcast. And of course, they continue the episode. We see Jon Snow. Davos discovers Jon Snow. But it's a nice shot of Castle Black. At first, I didn't know where we were going. I saw the wall, but we got it at a different angle, which was neat. And it's that great establishing shot of Castle Black and by the wall that we never got of Dorne, as me and Axel talked about. That is just, we just feel like we're on sets when we're in Dorne, but we'll hit Dorne a little later. But nice establishing shot and seeing Jon Snow laying there, dead as a doornail. I like, it was funny because the way Davos was looking at the pool of blood when they, he directs everyone to take Jon away. And Axel had mentioned on the initial reaction that he thought it was the shape of a dragon. And I don't know what I saw, if he's looking at a lot of blood, but it's almost like a work of art. You see an abstract work of art at a gallery or what have you, and everyone interprets it differently. You could see a shape of Jesus in some things. You see a shape of DJ Timmy Hines' head, whatever. But I think if you took a snapshot of it, put it on a wall, we'd all have different interpretations, whether it's death or, absence or, whatever, hipsters and art people, how they interpret art. But it's the same thing with all of us. We'd probably, look at this image, what do you see? And we'd probably all have different things. Axel saw a dragon. I saw Jon Snow because he was lying in the blood. But it was like, but the way Davos was looking at it, it really did seem like he saw something. So I thought that was interesting. Another point when Melisandre's there, she's all upset, and she feels Jon's face. I don't know if she could feel the coldness. Maybe she feels warmth. That was something interesting. She touched his face with her hand, and I didn't know if she thought by touching him she could resurrect it. Probably not, but she just looks like she is kind of like, not clueless, but, she says, I saw him in the flames fighting at Winterfell, so... very interesting there, but it's interesting how she touched his face, so I thought it was cool. And of course, Alistair Thorne in the meeting admits to killing Jon Snow and then throws everyone else under the bus. And it was interesting because there was someone in the background, you could hear it before he spoke. It's like, he should have never been Lord Commander, So it was kind of interesting. Foreshadowing here, I think Wolfsbane. I always forget if it's Wolfsbane, Tormund Giantsbane, Wolfsbane. I can't remember which one's right, but we'll call him the hotel's red-bearded guy, Tormund. I have a feeling he's going to kill Alistair Thorne. I just feel like that's going to happen. And so I look forward to that. I don't know any spoilers. I don't know. I'm not a book reader. Actually, technically, I've listened to some books, so I guess I'm a book listener. But I like how Davos's idea is to get the wildlings pretty much to avenge Jon Snow. There are only a few of them locked in the room. They need help. And because there's not many, Davos even asked Ed, who do you trust? And Ed's like, just everyone in this room. And so it's not too many of them. So he's like, who else is loyal, who owes Jon Snow? And so I believe the wildlings will come into play here, definitely. Well, I hope. And it's to convince him, I think Tormund will definitely avenge Jon Snow's death. That's my personal opinion. But I like what's going on here. They have till nightfall to make a decision, or else hell's going to break loose. And Davos knows. He knows if we open the door, we're all dead, and Jon's going to be, burnt or whatever. So I don't know, guys. I thought Jon Snow would get resurrected. He looks dead as hell. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I'll touch upon maybe some of my thoughts, with the whole Melisandre thing. But, as this is going, I'm waiting for him to wake up this whole episode, and it just didn't happen. And I'm glad they didn't do that. I'm glad, I hope they don't string it out for 8 episodes, but I guess we know the fate of Jon Snow. He's dead, but whether he comes back or not, I think that is definitely something that hopefully over the next episode or 2, I think we'll find out. Kind of like when Bran fell and he was in a coma in bed, and then he woke up. He woke up because, the way it was shot when Ned, I believe, had to kill one of the direwolves, and he wakes up. I'm wondering if something like that will happen where he'll wake up. I don't know. Or maybe when Bran, wakes up wherever he is, or maybe he channels Jon somehow. That's another possibility. Could Bran be the one to awake Jon Snow by some magical thing? I don't know much about the Bran storyline. He's been gone for a year, but it'll be interesting to find out what the hell he's been doing and what he can do. Because, with Jojen, Reed, and Mira, Jojen, of course, is dead, but Mira, Jojen was you can see the future, the present, and the past. So I'm wondering, I hope maybe he has a vision of the future with Jon. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see with that coming forth. All right, so we head over to the Boltons, who we all hate. But I tell you, it's for very interesting dialogue. The whole thing with, he's lost Sansa, as poor, Peter Baelish. Wonder where the hell he is. But I'm sure we'll find out. But without Sansa, there's no heir for Ramsay. And it's weird. It's Roose Bolton keeps antagonizing him. And anytime I'm like, Ramsay's going to knife you. But maybe, Roose has that hold on him. But he throws it in his face let's hope that, your stepmother is carrying a boy. Foreshadowing here, I think. I have this weird feeling Ramsay is going to kill the stepmother. He's going to find out it's a boy. They haven't got Sansa back, and he's just going to gruesomely stab her to death. I see that coming. Again, Game of Thrones is about foreshadowing, and when you watch a whole season, then you go back and you see all the foreshadowing happening. Something's going to happen here. Ramsay's going to lose it. And I wonder if Roose kills Ramsay if he does that, or is he egging him on to do that? I don't know. Roose, he says things, but I don't quite know what the hell he wants. He talks about how he's given up his alliance with the Lannisters by marrying Ramsay and Sansa, and you bastard. Sorry, Sean Connery in there. But what is Roose? I don't quite get what's going on there, and I think Ramsay's going to lose it. And I think he will kill the stepmother so she doesn't bear an heir. So Theon and Sansa are on the run, of course, and Brienne and Pod saved the day. I had a feeling it was coming, and some people are like, oh, it's so convenient, blah blah blah. But you know what? She was there. Brienne killed Stannis, and I love how actually Roose Bolton's like, I'd like to know the man who killed Stannis. I would give him, a popsicle or whatever. And it's like, oh, it's a woman and it's Brienne. So, but what I liked was we're starting to see Theon. I mean, he's really caring for Sansa, and he's ready to give his life for it. I mean, because the guard goes, I can't wait to see what kind of part is going to be taken from you next time or whatever. And he was literally like, you go, I'll distract him. And I was like, I gave a golf clap for Theon. I thought he did well there. And he also saves Pod. He actually kills someone. he killed Miranda, but now he's killed one of Ramsay and Roos's soldiers. So that's interesting. So the big thing is to head to Castle Black because Jon Snow's there. They don't know Jon's dead, but by the time they get there, will Jon be quote unquote alive again? Great moment with Brienne kneeling before Sansa and giving her some purpose. Brienne finally has some purpose now. I mean, I feel bad for Brienne because, she got turned down by both Stark women, and she's like, oh, crap. She did kill Stannis, so that was something she wanted to do. She's actually evidently trained Pod pretty well. Pod did put up a good fight, but they did it enough where he wasn't like frickin' Oberyn Martell fighting, but he was, he did all right. And he almost got killed if it wasn't for Theon. But I like that Brienne has purpose now, and I love the Brienne-Sansa alliance. Something about it. I like it, and I'm really looking forward to where the storyline's going. So pretty happy about that. I like that scene. I was excited when Brienne, and and it wasn't like Brienne came in there and kicked ass, and when she, at first she got knocked, she was getting knocked around. It wasn't, but it was really well done, and I thought it gave some early action to this premiere that we really needed. So another thing I've been doing to kind of pass time is I've been playing the Game of Thrones Telltale games. There's a 5-episode kind of game out there. I play it on my iPad. I guess you could do it on any console or whatever. But you follow characters of the Foresters, is like House Forrester, and you kind of go through, and there's different people of the house. It's kind of like one of those choose your own adventure games. I mean, most of you probably know about the game. And it's been really fun. And they have Jon Snow and a bunch of characters from Game of Thrones in it, which is Tyrion, which is pretty cool, Marjorie. But what's funny is there's a little nugget in here when Cersei is there and she's out of focus, but this girl announces that the ship's come in, Jaime's here or whatever. It is the actress who's the voice of Mira Forrester on the Telltale game. That's definitely her voice, and she does a couple of lines. So that was a cool shout-out to the game and stuff. So that was pretty cool. So when we did, me and Axel and Roberto from A Pot of Casts did kind of like a season preview kind of pod, we were talking, and I was just like, when Cersei sent off Jaime to find Marcella, she was in such a different place. She was pissed. She's like, you're going to fail with one arm. What are you going to do by yourself? Bring back our daughter, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, what the hell is she going to think when Jaime brings back Marcella deceased? There's no way. But what's amazing is after what Cersei's been through, what the Walk of Shame, bell. Shame. I love the Joffrey podcast. They have the bell ringing. I laugh every time they do the shame thing. Shout out there to Bubba and Catfish. But you can tell, and then Cersei brings up prophecy, and when I saw that witch in the woods, she said I would have 3 kids, they would all die, and she's really on a different level. It really affected her, I think, with her royalty being stripped down, starving, sipping water off the frickin' floor, getting shit thrown at her, the whole shame walk, and it seems like I'm not gonna be a fool and be like, Cersei has changed and she's gonna be great, I'm gonna root for her. But at this point, when she sees Jaime, she's not pissed at him. She's not like, you killed our daughter. She goes, I should have known it would happen. You told me we were supposed to stick together and blah, blah, blah. And, of course, Jaime's like, screw prophecy. And Jaime, of course, is about revenge and how they're going to all that matters is to them and how they got to bring it all back. Cersei does seem like a changed woman for this point. I don't know if I believe she'll always be that way, but I think the symbolism of her short hair is really key here. She had the long flowing blonde hair, the wine drinking, I'm the greatest in the world, blah, blah, blah. and now she's she has the short hair. She feels very humbled, and she's like, I had Marcella, and she was the only thing good. I mean, when you think about it, she had a good child. I mean, Tommen's a good kid too, but she really goes on, how could I make something so good? And I don't know. Maybe the Walk of Shame and everything did change Cersei. I don't know. Will Jaime bring the old Cersei back? Is this new Cersei going to be more, not convenient, but more of a compatible person with Jaime? Will Jaime even like that? Because, I could think about was the scene where, they had sex with, dead Joffrey, and I'm just like, oh, this is weird, but, I just got those flashbacks. But I don't know. It's interesting, and so it really sets up the Lannister versus the High Sparrow and all that. And I'm really interested to see where the Jaime character is going. I mean, I've been a fan of Jaime Lannister. I hated him in season 1. Season 2, I kind of like, But then as I started going through, when he started going with Brienne, I really started to kind of root for him. And it's amazing because I hated him in season 1. I wanted Ned Stark to kill him, But, that's going to be interesting. I don't quite know what's going to happen. Will Cersei lose her edge? Will she become a better person? Is it just temporary? And with the mountain all freaking zombified, I don't know. But I look forward to seeing what's going to happen during the season. So, Marjorie, of course, is in her cell, and she doesn't seem as broken as Cersei did. She seems a little afraid of the woman Septon there, or whatever her name is. But when the High Sparrow comes in, the High Sparrow says, I want you to confess. I'm like, all this guy wants is confessions. I'm just thinking, like, I don't know. He just wants everyone to confess. I don't know what his... He just wants to prove a point. I don't know. But the whole Marjorie thing, and Sir Loras, I mean, we didn't see him, but she wanted to talk to him. I don't quite know what's going to happen with Marjorie. He does touch on, the High Sparrow does, about how, a man and a woman should be together and love and all that, and talk about, her and Tommen. But she doesn't give a shit about Tommen. But, the whole Marjorie storyline, I really don't know where it's going to go. Whether the Tyrells and the Lannisters come together, that I don't know. But that's, I guess, is the one storyline I'm kind of like. I like the actress who plays Marjorie, but it just seems like, okay, where's this going to go now? So, I don't know. The Marjorie thing. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so moving on to our favorite place, Dorne, home of the sitcom. Good old Dorne. It misses some establishing shot. I love how when Jaime and Bronn kind of snuck in last season, it was like, oh, just go through a door and we're here. Dorne, the storyline last year was a little, because I've heard, about the sand snakes and book readers like, oh, the sand snakes. So I was kind of like, had my expectations amped up. But I liked what happened in Dorne this episode. I liked, the fact that they killed Dorian and his guard. I forget his name, but they're calling it a pinprick, but he got pretty stabbed in the back. I mean, he's not necessarily dead, but he probably is. What's interesting was when I was watching the scene, I'm like, did they really plan to kill them then? Was it because of the note that he received? And like, what? Marcella's dead? Then they decided to go and take both of them out then. So it would have been interesting if he doesn't get the note then. Do they still plan to kill him? I'm sure they do, but do they do it at that time? Do they wait? I'm wondering what kind of politics go into effect, because our favorite Paramore says that, no weak men will rule Dorne anymore. My favorite Sand Snake killed the big guard there. I don't know, William the Refrigerator Perry, whatever his name is. But she makes a good point. She goes, Elia Martell got raped and killed. Oberyn Martell was murdered and butchered or whatever, and you did nothing. And I gotta side with her. I mean, how do you not do anything? Granted, especially the Elia Martell thing. I mean, that's the reason why Oberyn wanted to kill the Mountain. And I'm still reflecting back to his arrogance 2 seasons ago when he had the Mountain killed, and he messed that up. Oh, Oberyn. I wish Oberyn was still alive. It would have been so good for this series. I hate losing great characters, but that's what we've done. Drago, Ned Stark, Robb Stark, everyone's gone. But as she says, weak men will never rule Dorne again. So it'll be interesting now, will a woman rule Dorne? And what is that? Granted, Jaime Lannister and the Lannisters are, got to knock out the High Sparrows and take care of stuff at home. But this Dorne, King's Landing / Lannister war could be coming to a head, because there's no way that Oberyn's paramour is going to let this go, She wants war. So we come to the great Trystane, excuse me, coloring, the eyes on the rocks that they put over the eyes of a corpse for Myrcella. So the 2 sand snakes come to kill Trystane, and wow, the stab through the head was pretty remarkable. It was pretty awesome. I thought it was a good scene, but there was speculation like, did this happen in Dorne? Did this happen in King's Landing? Blah, blah, blah. Well, it's not a spoiler, but I guess Axel was telling me from Dan and Dave, our showrunners, that they actually did jump on a boat and go to King's Landing and go there and sneak on the boat and kill him as the boat was docked, as Jaime comes in with Myrcella's body. So, okay, I was confused. I was like, where the hell did the Sand Snakes come from? I know Trystane went with them, and then, of course, on the initial reaction, half our small council was confused, wasn't sure. I know Axel had mentioned maybe it's not Trystane. I love you, Axel, but it definitely was Trystane. But, off initial reaction, you can't, it was actually a good out-of-the-box kind of look at it. But I guess, just because they were on the dock watching the boat go, and they were in no sense of urgency. And, so it kind of just like, okay, it makes sense, but it's kind of twofold. Like, if we saw a couple scenes of the 2 sand snakes on a boat saying, we're going to kill Trystane, we would have been bored, outraged, been like, what the hell did they do that for? So, honestly, who really cares? The thing is that weak men need to die, and, But what's really not impressive, God, Dorne ain't impressive. Heath Snolo, you listen to the Small Council podcast live. Now, do they get to sneak away and go back to Dorne? Or are they going to fiddle around King's Landing? Well, they would die if they did that, but they're so arrogant, these sand snakes, that who knows? So if they wind up in Dorne in 2 episodes, it's kind of like, okay, whatever, but, what are you going to do? To move the plot forward, they had to kill Trystane. Now, what is the ramifications? Is Jaime or Bronn going to go on the boat and be like, oh, Trystane got killed. Who killed them? Kind of interested to see what happens there when they find him dead. It's just like, oh my God, there's going to be a war. Is the sand, so I'm a little confused with the whole Dorne storyline and what's going to happen. Granted, killing Trystane, Mira's killing Dorian and whatnot, but how is that going to affect King's Landing when they find him dead? So onwards to Meereen. Oh, great Meereen. I really could care less about Meereen now. Last season I did with the Sons of the Hoppy. Sorry, I'm from New England. That's how we say the hoppy, and Danny and all that stuff, and her, the trial run of ruling Marine, and will she be able to rule King's Landing? But the big thing I got from Marine is we finally find out that a eunuch has no cock. Sorry for the explicit here on the Small Council Pod. So I always thought it was eunuch, meaning you have a penis and no scrotum or balls. And so now with Tyrion, making the comment, you have no cock, that's very interesting. So I guess now our boy, that's just weird. So with the Unsullied, do they have no balls and a cock? Anyway, enough of that. But I thought that was interesting. Apologize for the, anyway, whatever. But I just kind of glad that got, that got cleared. Because I wasn't sure if it was either or, things that I know. Okay, so when I just find it weird that Tyrion and Varys, I forget what his name is. I call him Varys, it's probably Varys. I'll call him Varys, it's probably Varys. But he's such a freaking great actor. I love watching him react to other actors. Throughout this whole series, if you just watch Varys or Varys, I'm just going to say Varys. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I like Varys better than Varys. Varys reminds me of Garen Varys, lineman for the New England Patriots in the 80s, whatever. Neither here nor there. They're like walking the city without any protection, which seems odd after what just happened in the arena and them trying to kill Danny. Okay, so that bothered me. I'm like, why can't they just walk the streets without any protection? Now, there is someone who is watching them. That is clear. You see kind of his shoulder and his back of his head. Who is that? But the real question I have here in Marine, who is the leader of the Sons of the Harpy? They do talk about someone's got to be given orders. I wonder if it's someone we don't know, probably, but it'd be kind of cool if it's like Littlefinger or someone we do know. That's interesting. And of course, all the ships, the wooden horses that Drago used to call them, the ships are burnt to a crisp. And then, of course, Tyrion goes, there's no way we're getting to Westeros anytime soon. And then, of course, all the fans probably go like, oh, mother, DJ time. So that's interesting. I just still can't believe they're walking the city. Varys in his frickin' sleeves pose and Tyrion walking like the streets were meant for him or whatever he says. It's like, you rich people think the streets were paved for you, the cobblestones. I thought that was funny. So, I'm done with Marine. Well, I'm not necessarily done with Marine, but the Sons of the Harpy thing, really, like, I want to know who the leader is and what's going on. And that'd be kind of cool. Anyway, so moving on, as Heath Snowlow does. Jorah and Dario 2.0. They're tracking Danny. I'm going to be honest. Dario 2.0 I really like. I think Michael Hussman, I call him Treme. It's too bad he wasn't the original Dario because I hated the original Dario. Not because of the actor. I just was like, he was so anti-Jorah, and he was kind of like this smug, like, whatever. And he's good, but now this Dario I like. So I don't know back and forth what to do about that, but I really love Dario 2.0. They're talking about, if I grow old, I hope I'm like you. Well, you gotta hope you grow old. Whatever the dialogue was going back and forth. Kind of dug it. I don't know. I like the two of them together. They do find the ring that Danny put down. And at first, when I saw it in the trailer, I'm like, how do you find a ring? But when you watch it, especially in HD, you see all the grass matted down from horses. And then there's a section where Danny was standing that the grass is still growing. And that's where Jorah kind of looked and kind of deduced from his tracking methods, okay, Danny must have been here, blah, blah, blah. And he finds the ring. I'm okay with him finding the ring now, whatever. I'm not going to pick apart. See, I listen to podcasts and they pick apart stuff that I'm like, I don't care. Like, who cares? It's fiction. It's a story, whatever. I mean, it's not real life. Why do we have to pick it apart like it's real life? So, like, certainly, oh, that couldn't happen in real life. Or, there's a podcast I listen to that pick apart The Walking Dead. I'm like, okay, first of all, it's a zombie world. First of all, that's fake. And you're going to go pick apart, Anyway, so he finds the ring. But it makes it more realistic with the whole path of the horses and stuff. So, okay. And we see that Jorah's grayscale's getting worse. Is he going to change to a stone man? Is he going to find a cure? I wonder, so if he touches someone, I'm assuming he's not a stone man fully, but if he touches someone, does it infect them? So that's interesting. So I don't know. I hope Jorah survives. I really do like Ian Glenn in this character. And I like him and Dario. I do. So we'll see, So, it's funny. We talked about the trailer. I don't know if it was, I guess it was 2 podcasts ago. And I did notice in one of them, I'm like, it looked like Danny's hands were bound. And then there's another scene, they're not bound. So I'm like, oh, she's not a slave. But her hands were bound. So I was correct when I saw her hands not bound. Anyway, so she's getting sent to Khal Moro, and all that dialogue, it was kind of like, these guys are really talking like scumbags, but it was kind of like to set up when is Danny gonna, because Danny knows Dothraki and actually bought the book, How to Speak Dothraki, the whole book. So I'm gonna read that, and maybe I'll be speaking Dothraki by the end of the season. But I should be learning Italian and Czech first, since I'm getting married in Czech and going to my honeymoon in Italy, so that I'll probably have to put the Dothraki thing on hold. Anyway, so, more or less, she is brought to Khal Moro, and she starts speaking Dothraki, and finds out she was married to Khal Drogo, blah, blah, blah. I can't, have sex with a widow, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to send her to Fohas Dothrak to live out her days with other widows. Now, granted, it wasn't from my knowledge. It was from, I believe, A Cast of Kings. Joanna Robinson pointed this out, that where they want to send her, because she's like, I'll offer you so much if you take me back to Marine. And they're like, no, we got to send you here. And it's basically in season 1 where she eats the heart and doesn't throw up. And then, of course, her brother gets his crown. That's where they're sending. That's where Khal Moro says they're going to send Danny. Now, whether or not Jorah and Dario 2.0 intercept that, it'd be cool if Danny could rally the Dothraki and go to Marine and then go to Westeros, and that would kind of be cool. So I don't know. I don't know what is going on with this storyline here. I guess they're going to send her there. Now, Khal Moro says you won't be raped, you won't be taken advantage of, you're under my protection. So that's cool, because I don't want to see Danny, because we're going into the season, I'm thinking strong women characters, revenge is the theme, and it does kind of seem like it. That's where we're headed. So I'm hoping, I just don't want to see anything bad this season happen to female characters. I'm like, enough already. Let's see them succeed. And I really do think we will, but I need for this Danny storyline to, let's get her to Westeros. Let's get her to, as I used to call Knots Landing, but King's Landing. I want to see this happen. Enough with Marine and all this stuff. But I kind of did like, the couple scenes we saw with Danny, so hopefully it'll all work out as a fan base of what we want to see happen to Danny. All right, so Arya, still in Braavos, great shot of her at the end of her scene with the shot of, I want to say the four-toed statue from Lost, but no, the Bravosian. That's awesome. So she's blind and alone. She's, as you can tell, she's listening. She's trying to use her sense of hearing to compensate for her loss of sight. And then, of course, that frickin' blonde biatch comes and beats the hell out of her. And it's like, you know what? I hope this is part of her training, because I'm like, really? You want to come and beat a blind woman? Oh, you're so powerful. But, I think in the end, we're going to find out that all that was for a reason, and she's building up Arya. I mean, is Arya going to be Daredevil, blind, crazy fighter? I got to believe she'll get her sight back at some point, but when she's ready, or when our boy, Jaqen H'ghar, sorry, I'm like burping like crazy. What the hell? My apologies to the small council listeners. So, Arya gets her butt kicked, but it's, kudos to the guy who gave her a square coin or whatever. Good for you. Oysters, clams, and cockles. Oysters, clams, and TJ Timmy Heinzels. So, I wonder what's going to go on with Arya. She's blind. She's begging for food. What now? So that'll be interesting. What happens with her? I hope. God, I want to see all the Starks get together. I want to see Jon Snow resurrected. I want to see Sansa with them, Arya with them, Bran with them. I want to see them all together and team up with Dany, I guess. And I don't know. But then I kind of start liking the Lannisters, so I'm like, what the hell's going on? Anyway, so I had mentioned the whole Sir Alistair at Castle Black ultimatum: by nightfall, make a decision or else. So hopefully the wildlings will come back before then. Our fate of Jon Snow, what's going to happen? But the big thing we find out at the end of the episode, our sexy ass Melisandre, she gets naked. I'm like, here we go again. But now there's a reason. She's an old woman when she takes that necklace off. Now, there was talk where she was in the bath, I believe, talking to Stannis' wife. She didn't have the necklace on, but she does talk about how potions and how, I can manipulate. So, did Stannis' wife see her as an old lady, or with her potions and stuff, even though she was in there, was she, did Stannis' wife see what Melisandre is? Meaning, the facade of a beautiful woman, not the old lady. Now, the question is, what was the purpose of showing that Melisandre is 400 years old and has droopy tits and looks nasty? Okay. Is it that I kind of have a prediction. If she does give herself to save Jon Snow, will she permanently be this old woman and then eventually die? By resurrecting Jon Snow, will she forgive her youth? That is the facade. And, maybe she's coming to terms like, this is me. If I do this, this is how I look forever. Will she have to sacrifice how she looks to all of us, the beautiful Carice Van Houten? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, by them showing that, it's like, okay, I'm going to resurrect Jon Snow somehow from the Lord of Light, but I'm going to look like this for the rest of my life until I die, which may be soon. Maybe she'll die soon. I'm thinking that's what they're telling us by showing that. I doubt she's going to put the necklace around Jon Snow and then he becomes alive. I got to believe if Melisandre is the key to getting Jon Snow alive again, she has to sacrifice something. And I got to believe that's what they're showing us. Maybe she'll lose the hot, sexy Carice look, and maybe she'll just end up the old woman and perish. So, that's some food for thought. I don't know. I'm 50-50 on whether Jon Snow's going to come back. And if he comes back, is he going to come back like Beric Dondarrion, that whole thing with the brothers without banners thing, or is he going to be a different person? I don't know. I hope so, because I really like Kit Harington, and I like the Jon Snow character. And as our early podcast on the film list, and I think we might have released it on podcast Little Fell, which is now the Small Council. I always was saying Jon Snow's the key to it all. That's what I felt in season 1, and I still believe that. I just hope. I can't believe he'd be dead and then we'd be done with it. I mean, we got a lot of great characters left, great characters to follow, but can I go a series without Jon Snow, Bran, Sansa, and Arya not getting together? I don't know. Can we? So, I am excited about this season. I think it's going to be one hell of a season. I think it's going to be high octane. I think we're going to get a lot throughout. I don't think they're going to pull any punches. There are still some, I know we say, it's surpassed the books, but unfortunately from me knowing, I know there's some storylines that haven't been touched. Whether or not they do that, I don't know still. There's still a lot from the books because, when you write a book, there's so much you can put in, where a show, you got to narrow it down. So I don't think we've exceeded. But I do want to say one thing, and this is to all Game of Thrones podcasters and people who have read the books and who love to podcast because they know what's going on. But then when they, when they don't know, if something's not in the books, they're afraid to theorize. They're afraid to, I can't comment, or, gee, I don't know. It's like, what's the whole point? Is the whole point that you like to podcast because you know what's coming? When we did Lost and everything, we had no idea, but we still theorized when we put our thoughts out there. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't, are you not able to podcast because you don't know what's going to happen? No, of course. And, so, I don't know. It's just to other Game of Thrones podcasters out there, just, enjoy it. Theorize. Don't be afraid. And just don't be like, I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. Like some podcasts I'll listen to where they have book readers, and they're like, gee, I don't know what's going to happen. This wasn't in the book. Well, frickin', touch that mind of yours and try to come up with something. That's what we do here on the Small Council, a.k.a. the old podcast Little Fell. I mean, we have some book readers. We have non-book readers. We have fake book readers, which is me. And we theorize. We give our thoughts. And so don't cop out. And it's amazing how some of these podcasts that are, get sponsors and have 100,000 downloads, but they're all they do is recap and they don't theorize, and I don't know, it's just not engaging. That's why I love the Joffrey podcast, A Pot of Cass, even Bald Move. They do a great job, and this week's episode they did was fantastic. It's like, come on guys, freaking, we theorize, we put ourselves out there, probably 80% of the time we're wrong, but who cares? That's the fun of it. And so, these recap podcasts that, don't like to, they just bash the show, or they can't comment because, they don't know what in the books, or they don't know what's going to happen because it wasn't in the books. It's like, whatever. But of course, I'm a fool for keep on listening. So who am I to say what they need to do? But, I'm just kind of like, I'm like, come on. Just go with it. And, the book readers who won't watch the show because it's, past the book, you know what? If you're waiting for George R.R.R. Martin to write a next book, good luck. But I will say this. Book readers who read the books before the show, I'm kind of siding with you. If that's your thing, do your thing. But, we got a great show here. And Dan and Dave are going to do a great job. It's going to be fun. It's two different mediums. You got books, TV show. Granted, some of it is the same, but you know what? watch the show, enjoy it, and theorize with your buddies and your friends. Don't be afraid. And don't just recap. Talk and give your thoughts. Anyway, that's just Heath Snowlow here, the bastard podcaster, giving his thoughts on, at this point, I don't care. I mean, I care about Game of Thrones, but it's just frustrating listening to some podcasts. I try to listen to all the Game of Thrones podcasts and see what's going on and what they think. But some people are just like, what? They just don't want to talk about the show because either they don't know what's going to happen. Well, none of us do, unless you're a spoiler person. I mean, and you got great connections. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's the whole point of watching a show and thinking about it and predicting. That's all we do. Well, I think that's about enough. I think you've heard enough of Heath Snowlow. I got my points in. I'm excited for this season. I'm excited to talk to the boys on the small council. W. Axel Foley, Donald Jr., DJ Timmy Hines, Mikey Hull. I didn't forget anyone, did I? Probably myself. Oh, he's Snowlow. But no, honestly, I'm excited to doing the show with the guys. I will be on the initial reaction this Sunday. And what we'll do is we're going to try to do, of course, a second podcast every week. Whether it's myself or if someone can't make it, we may, pair up the guys and do that. I know DJ Timmy Hines wanted to do this pod with me, but unfortunately my week was so crazy I had to do it at like 2 a.m. Pacific. But we'll make sure we try to do the initial reaction, listen to other podcasts, digest the information, then come out with a podcast at the end of the week to kind of reaffirm or maybe come up with some new things. Granted, I'm just giving my thoughts here, and, I'm not the ambassador of what's right. It's just, just my thoughts. And again, the foreshadowing, take it in. It's there. This is a wonderful show, and we need to enjoy what's left of it because, when we did during the Lost years, it was so amazing. And then, it may be the last season kind of like, but it was still the anticipation, the community. Now we have it with Game of Thrones, and let's enjoy this season. Let's band together. We're the Brotherhood without banners, or maybe we have a banner, and let's enjoy this season. I can't wait to talk to you about it. You can email us. Axel Foley will let you know where you can email us, and of course follow us on the Twitter, WAxelFoley, at Donald Jr., at DJ Timmy Hines, at Fifth Column Film, at Heath Actor is mine, and then, of course, at Small Council Pod. And then, of course, our good friend, we're a spinoff of Podcast Winterfell, our good friend Matt Murdock. He only does the books now, no longer the TV show, but if you're a book reader, check out his podcast and follow him at Winterfell Pod, I believe is his Twitter handle. So, yeah, look forward to talking about episode 2 of season 6 coming up soon. Our initial reaction will drop Monday morning. So I'm Heath Snowlow, the bastard podcaster, saying Valor, Julia, and I'm Margulies.
You're listening to The Small Council, a Game of Thrones podcast. Find us on Twitter at Small Council Pod. Email us at smallcouncilpod@gmail.com.
Hello, people of Westeros. This is Peter Baelish. You're listening to the Small Council Podcast, a Game of Thrones pod, with W. Axel Foley, DJ Timmy Hines, Donald Jr., Heath Snowlow, and Mikey Hull. No Sansa, I'm sorry. But follow them on the Twitter, at Small Council Pod. Enjoy the podcast.